Hello everyone, how are you doing? Welcome to another video. This is a special video to do a book review about this book, the ZX Spectrum Demoscene by Piotr Yermzier and Hellboy. I won this at Inertia. It was sponsored by Lord Cox's. I already had my eye on it just a bit before it, and it's a very good book. I was very pleasantly surprised. I know Demoscene for a very long time, as you know, and I've been following the ZX Spectrum Demoscene for a very long time as well, for decades even. I still learned a lot by reading this book, and I highly recommend it. It explains well what the Demoscene is, what the charm about the Spectrum itself is, the whole thing of why it was so popular, mostly on the Eastern countries, in Czech Republic, in Poland, in Russia, how the Russians took over the whole thing, and why it has like a resurgence in terms of interest and attention. I was very, very interested in this. I highly recommend everyone to check it out. Even if you're just marginally interested in the Demoscene or marginally interested in the Spectrum, I think you'll see a lot of interesting information in this book. Very well researched. They also have interviews with a few Demosceners in there of different nationalities, a few Russian, a few Polish, a few Czech, and a gasman from the United Kingdom. It tells the whole story of the Spectrum, well, an abridged version of the Spectrum, because that wasn't the main highlight, but it does cover the different Spectrums that existed in different places, the different clones, the official ones and the unofficial ones. Portugal has a special connection with the Spectrum because we had a lot of Spectrums here as well, and we had an official clone which was made by Timex, which was a Portuguese company at the time. So I loved the Spectrum. I had the Spectrum when I was growing up. It's a computer that I learned to program in, so I had a very tight it's not affiliation, it's connection, affinity with the Spectrum. And yeah, it follows. I have the same thing as it's mentioned in the book. After many years of having moved on to other computers and platforms, I find myself coming back to the Spectrum because it was the original computer that I started with, and I learned a lot of things. That the Spectrum was very well adopted in terms of clones because it was one of the simpler machines that existed compared to the Atari and the Commodore 64. It had more hardware stuff associated with it, which made it harder to clone, and that was one of the reasons why the Spectrum was so attractive on the Russian market, because it was easier to find parts to clone, and you could do it at home. You could just solder it at home. There were a lot of Spectrum clones that were made at your home, just buying the parts and soldering yourself. So it has a lot of strong connections with the DIY scene as well at the time on the electronics, and especially back then we still had the Berlin Wall and all those things, so it was very hard to get these new electronic systems into those countries that were still under the USSR at the time. Other things that I learned a lot about the beeper. I didn't know there was such a intricate thing. I knew the limitations of the beeper, and I knew a lot of people were working to surpass those limitations. I had no idea that such things like 6 channels on a mono beeper were possible just by modulating signals, stuff like that. So much work that was put into it. I really learned a lot by reading here and the different solutions that exist. And it's funny because I've been following Hoffman's streams, and he's been getting into the Spectrum as well and coding for the beeper and learning more about the beeper. So there was very interesting parallel. I was reading about it at the same time he was exploring it, like in real practice. Other things that I need to say about the book: it was released in 2018, so it doesn't really cover the ZX Next that came out since then, which researched the Spectrum scene quite a bit as well. What else can I say about it? It covers a lot the Demoscene aspect of it and how the Demoscene sort of took over an abandoned platform. Most of the games that were still being made for the ZX Spectrum, it's claimed that it comes from the Demoscene. I don't think I quite agree with that. I think there's a lot of games being released and still made for the Spectrum that doesn't have any connection with the Demoscene at all. But I do see the charm and the poeticness of trying to state that it's the Demoscene doing all of that, but I don't think in practice it's not. I think it's a bit of short-sightedness of the authors to assume that it's only the Demoscene driving it. There's a lot of interest in making games for all platforms from people who are not at all related to the Demoscene, which I would hope they were more related to the Demoscene, but I think there's a little bit more of a separation. Even though there's like overlapping things, it's still a bit of a separation. What else did I learn about this? I learned a lot about the Czech ZX Spectrum scene, which I only had heard from seeing the results from Forever parties and stuff like that. I knew they had a lot of activity, but I didn't know to what degree of complexity they were, and this book talks a lot about that as well, and interviews some of those active sceners that were active back then. It was also a very interesting review of Bright Past demo, which is a demo that I quite like, but they went to such deep detail. I wish everyone would do demo reviews like that, like considering the different aspects of the whole thing, and not really philosophizing about it. All of them were pretty feet down on the earth, all the comments that they made about it, but it really reflected a lot of the different meanings behind each scenes, which me as a demo maker, sometimes we don't really put that much thought into things. We just do them because they just make sense. We don't really have that deeper analysis of the thing, which is interesting to see on other people analyzing the works, because sometimes there's a lot of stuff that it's subliminal, or it's on your conscious, subconscious, and you just transmit it somehow, but you're not really aware or deeply aware of why you are bringing out that message. And I think this demo in particular has a lot of communism bad, communism good, with sarcasm in between, like longing for communism, or it has a very, it can make you reflect on the topic a lot, and I really enjoy demos that do that these days, more than doing the technical thing, which a lot of Demoscene productions do. I also love demos that have like a specific message, even if it's not a serious message, but something that makes you think, something that makes you reflect, something that drives the demo itself. So it's not just a demo for seeing the effects on screen, but something that has a narrative of some sort. And I'm a very big fan of that in the Demoscene. Some stuff that I think the book lacked was a deeper connection with the game dev scenes that's happening in the United Kingdom. It has a very strong game development scene. The Spanish scene, it's just briefly mentioned, but it also is very active as far as I know. South America also has a strong retro thing for the Spectrum as well. Well, strong, I don't know how strong it can be considered, but it exists, and it was a bit overlooked in the book. Maybe if you do like maybe because of lack of knowledge, maybe because it wasn't just focused on the game dev, it was more focused on the demo scene. And it is true that South American demo scene isn't very existing, prominent, active. Retro computing and making games is a lot more active in that sense in those countries. But for example, the United Kingdom is a very strong game dev scene, and also very strong demo scene present. Quite a few people doing it, and only Gasman was briefly interviewed and gave some insight in some places, but it wasn't like analyzed as like, considering that it's the birthplace of the computer and that a lot of people still do stuff in it. I found it a bit weird that it was so much focused on the Russian side and Czech side of things. But overall, I really liked the book. I think it's a very good book. It explains a lot of the fundamentals of the demo scene. Some stuff on the interviews I didn't completely agree with, like when they ask some demo sceners the concept behind participating in the demos, or why they still make stuff for the platform. They have 6-7 answers from these demo sceners, and I don't think it's completely representative of why so many people are involved in the demo scene, but it still gives a very good insight on why some people do it. Yeah, I really enjoyed Very well written, as I mentioned. Very good introduction to the Demoscene. Excellent introduction into the ZX Spectrum. So it does its job very well, the title job very well, explaining what the ZX Spectrum Demoscene is about. And yeah, it talks about a lot of hidden gems of the ZX Spectrum Demoscene, which I want to go back and see. And yeah, highly recommend the book if you're into the Demoscene, if you're into Spectrum. I think it's a must-read, one of the best Demoscene books that I have read, and I have read quite a few. So yeah, highly recommend it. Thumbs up for the creators, and thumbs up for the university as well for, being open to publish. I'm not sure if this was like, I know two of these people are related academically. I don't know if it was just an afterthought that they had. I need to send some emails and ask about that. If this was like a master thesis of some sort, or if it was just, okay, we should be doing this thing, or maybe they had like a grant to write about this. But I thank you for doing it. I think it's a really good archiving piece for the future. I'm just a bit sad that it ended in 2018, because since 2018 a lot of interesting things happened in the Spectrum, mostly because of the ZX Next, and not the ZX Next that was the clone in Russia, but the ZX Next that was released on the United Kingdom through the Kickstarters. A lot of renewed interest in developing for the Spectrum, old and new version of the Spectrum. So I think that's the only major thing that is missing in the book that would warrant a revision of the text, or a second edition with some additional text, including that, if you wanted to have like a more of seminal piece giving a complete overview. But as I mentioned, still a must read. Very good, very well written, and very good insight. So highly recommend it to everyone. That's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed the review. Hope you think it was useful, and let me know what you think on the comments below. If you have read it, if you have not read it. See you next video. Bye bye everyone. Take care.